On January 8th, I released a video about how Boeing agreed to pay a $2.5 billion fine to settle criminal fraud charges over the 737 MAX crisis. In that video, I expressed outrage that Boeing got off easy because nobody went to jail for their part in the crime. But you and I always knew nobody was ever going to go to jail because, as I explained in that video, when it comes to corporate crimes, people rarely ever do go to jail. Instead, they settle cases by paying off governments with large sums of money in exchange for the ability to keep making their widgets while pacifying politicians by filling their pockets with cold, hard cash. So of course, in the comments section, I got a lot of comments from Airbus fans about how Airbus would have never committed such a crime and how Boeing is yet just another example of American corporate greed. Well, I have some bad news for you Airbus fans out there. They are not only just as dirty as Boeing, they may be even worse. Because in 2020, while we were all busy being unemployed and sheltered in our homes due to the pandemic, Airbus was pleading guilty to one of, if not the largest criminal bribery scandals in history that saw Airbus pay not $2.5 billion like Boeing, but almost double that. Try $4 billion due to a nearly 15-year-long bribery scandal Airbus masterminded that involved not just Europe, but the entire world. Finally, Boeing fans rejoice.
And the truth shall set you free!
Because today, it's all about Airbus. Next on Maximus. Greetings everybody, Maximus here. I hope you are all doing well wherever you may be all around this great big world of ours. And of course, if you're new here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do. And don't forget to hit the bell so you can be notified whenever we release new content. I have to give a shout out to channel subscriber Mark Odom, who to his credit has been hounding me about when will we talk about the record-setting Airbus bribery story on the channel. And to say I'm a little late to the party with this story, well, that's an understatement, because Airbus reached this world record-setting $4 billion settlement in January of 2020. So yeah, a year later is a bit late. However, I'm willing to bet a majority of you, especially here in the US, have never heard this story because it was pretty much forgotten by February of 2020 as the pandemic was beginning to rage across the world. Not only that, but this Airbus scheme is so complicated. It's like an octopus in a spider web. It's so tangled I had no idea where to begin. And actually, I still don't think I have a complete handle on it yet, but I'm going to give it my best shot because I promised Mark Odom I'd bring this story to light on the channel. Also, it's a great chance for me to maybe lose the Boeing hater title, at least for one video anyway. So try and keep up as I untangle this octopus from the spider web. On Friday, January 31st, 2020, Airbus agreed to pay a record $4 billion in fines after reaching a plea bargain deal with prosecutors in Britain, France, and the United States after admitting it had paid huge bribes to over 20 countries stretching back at least 15 years. Anti-corruption investigators hailed the result as the largest ever corporate fine for bribery in the world after judges declared that the corruption was grave, pervasive, and pernicious. As the UK Guardian reported in the High Court in London, Dame Victoria Sharp, the president of the Queen's Bench Division, approved the settlement with the UK Serious Fraud Office known as the SFO. She said the seriousness of the criminality in this case hardly needs to be spelled out. Alison Clare for the Serious Fraud Office told the court that Airbus had paid bribes in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Taiwan, and Ghana between 2011 and 2015. The crimes were also spread across other countries including Russia and China for over 13 years. A French prosecutor said in court that the plan helped to boost the company's profits by $1.2 billion. French prosecutors also examined bribes to other countries including China, Japan, Russia, Kuwait, Brazil, and Turkey. Airbus, which admitted to only 5 counts of failing to prevent bribery, detailed a global network of agents or middlemen to pay large-scale bribes to officials in foreign countries to invest the bribe cash into high-value land contracts. The scheme was run by a secret unit at the French headquarters of Airbus, which had a reported annual operating budget of 250 to 300 million euros. One-time Airbus chief executive Tom Enders reportedly referred to the unit as Bullshit Castle. Under the settlement, Airbus agreed to pay 2.1 billion euros to France, 991 million euros including costs to the UK, and 527 million euros to American authorities. The settlement surpasses the previous UK record for a corporate fine for bribery of £671 million paid by Rolls-Royce in 2017. Under the deal, known as a deferred prosecution agreement, Airbus will pay the fines and cooperate with any future government investigations. In return, any prosecutions of Airbus will be suspended for 3 years. If that sounds familiar, it should, because it's the same deal Boeing just made. Also, as in the Boeing case, the UK courts are still considering whether to prosecute people individually involved in the crimes. Bloomberg reported that U.S. District Court Judge Thomas Hogan called the conduct by Airbus employees and executives pervasive and pernicious, and asked the U.S. prosecutor Alina Rubin-Smith whether individuals would be charged. The investigation is ongoing, she said. She told the judge that Airbus's deal requires them to aid any efforts to charge individuals. Airbus used the 150-person secret unit to pay bribes to win business, according to prosecutors in Washington, D.C. The company made $50 million in improper payments to AirAsia Group directors through the sponsorship of a sports team and promised to pay off the relative of a high-ranking Guyanese government official and paid $2 million to the wife of a Sri Lankan Airways purchasing official. The company's crimes in the U.S. included export violations. In the UK, there were 5 counts, 4 relating to commercial aircraft in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and Taiwan, while the 5th related to a defense contract. The wrongdoing first came to light when the UK's export finance body, which supports some Airbus sales, questioned the company about missing information regarding sales agents. A subsequent review by Airbus included red flags for corruption, after which UK Export Finance suggested the company report itself to the SFO. Then Airbus Chief Executive Officer Tom Enders launched an internal probe, and the European manufacturer turned itself into authorities in 2016. Investigations into Airbus were subsequently opened in France and the US. The fallout led to the departures of top Airbus executives and dominated the last several years of Enders' tenure. Now let's take a look at a few of the ways Airbus spread this scheme all across the globe. In Malaysia, between 2011 and 2015, Airbus bribed 2 AirAsia executives to secure an order of 180 aircraft. It provided at least a US $50 million sponsorship to a sports team owned by these executives and promised to pay a total of $55 million. In Sri Lanka, between 2011 and 2015, Airbus recruited a straw company owned by the wife of a Sri Lankan Airlines executive. The agreement resulted in sales of 10 Airbus aircraft and a lease of 4 aircraft, with a $16.84 million bribe offered and $2 million actually paid. Airbus concealed the straw company's affiliation with the executive by misleading authorities about the gender and name of the executive's wife. In Taiwan, between 2011 and 2015, to bribe TransAsia Airways to purchase 20 Airbus aircraft, Airbus funneled multiple payments to an executive via 2 intermediaries respectively registered in Hong Kong and the UAE. The payments were disguised as consulting fees with no actual consulting services provided. In Indonesia, between 2011 and 2015, An Airbus business partner paid over $3.3 million US to executives of a domestic airline and/or its subsidiary and the executive's family members, intending to influence or reward their improper favor over business with Airbus. The executives were decision makers of the national airline's purchase of 55 Airbus aircraft. In Ghana between 2009 and 2015, to secure a purchase contract from the government of Ghana, Airbus engaged a close relative of the decision-making official as an intermediary and paid the intermediary a US $5.5 million. And finally in China, between 2008 and 2015, the secret Airbus unit orchestrated bribery schemes to secure contracts and businesses from private companies, state-owned and state-controlled entities in China by offering and bribing decision-makers and influencers. Airbus disguised bribes by utilizing loan schemes, wiring payments from accounts held by companies affiliated with business partners, mischaracterizing the nature of the payments, and falsifying contracts and invoices. In particular, Airbus engaged multiple consultants to secure aircraft purchase agreements with Chinese government entities that oversaw the aviation sector in China. The agreement stipulated the type of volume of aircraft to be purchased and delivered to state-owned and state-controlled airlines in China. Airbus executed multiple bribery schemes to bribe Chinese government officials to induce improper influence on the approval of the agreement or an increase of the purchase. Airbus and its affiliates invited officials from Chinese state-owned and state-controlled airlines to attend events hosted in an overseas luxury resort and covered all the expenses. Airbus China also contributed money to create a fund with one of the above Chinese government entities, which was used to host events for government officials, including golf retreats and entertainment events. Like I said, this was an octopus in a spider web. At this point, it's important that you need to keep one thing in mind. The sole reason Airbus entered into this global bribery scheme was an attempt to catch up to Boeing's dominance of the commercial aviation market. Airbus could never catch up to Boeing no matter what they did, but eventually in 2019, Airbus in fact surpassed Boeing as the world's leader in commercial aviation. So then that begs the question, without 15 years of constant bribery all around the world, would Airbus be able to overtake Boeing as the world's leading aircraft manufacturer?
No way!
Let me know down below. But seriously, this isn't a video bashing Airbus, just like my Boeing videos aren't bashing them. I just lay out the facts and let you decide. I'm looking forward to what you have to say. Oh, and Mr. Odom, I hope I covered everything you were looking for. Well, that's it for me. Now it's your turn. And before you go, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and ring the bell. And be sure to check out the merch shop in the links below. And as always, remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time in the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.